They said the universe had forgotten Earth. They said humanity was a flicker, too small, too fragile, too late to matter. But they were wrong. It began on a quiet spring evening, under a soft sky painted with silver clouds. Children laughed on the floating platforms of New Geneva, the capital of Earth's new dawn. The stars shimmered like gentle witnesses above a peaceful world rebuilt from centuries of silence. Among them was Alara, a little girl with amber eyes and a voice that carried laughter like a songbird's tune. She was 8, curious and endlessly brave, the kind of child who asked too many questions about the stars. Her father, Commander Rian Sol, often told her bedtime stories about the Ancestral Armada, the mythical fleet humanity had built before the dark centuries. When Earth still dreamed of the stars, no one believed those stories anymore. The Armada was a legend, ghost ships and forgotten war machines buried in time. Humanity was now a single planet in a galaxy of giants, a humble voice among thunder, until that day. The alien vessel entered orbit without a word. The Vael Dominion, known for their cold diplomacy and colder justice, demanded surrender of the mineral rights on Luna. Earth refused, gently but firmly. Humans had learned peace through pain. They would not yield their home again. The Vael did not debate. They made a demonstration. It lasted only 3 seconds. From orbit, a pinpoint of light fell like a tear. It struck New Geneva's plaza, right where Alara stood, holding her father's hand, gazing up at the stars she loved. There was no fire, no sound, only a blinding silence that swallowed a city square. When the light faded, nothing remained, no screams, no ashes. Just absence. Commander Rian Sol was thrown back by the shockwave of compressed air. His armor cracked, his lungs burned, and in that hollow silence he called her name once, just once. But she was gone. The world paused. Billions watched the news feed in disbelief. One shot, one child, one heartbeat taken. And in that single instant, something ancient stirred in the marrow of humanity. Across the solar network, transmissions rippled. Old frequencies, once sealed, now awakening. Deep beneath the oceans, in the forgotten vaults of Antarctica, and the buried chambers beneath Olympus Mons, lights flickered that had been dark for 1,000 years. Earth's core network began to hum. Tones older than the colonies, older than the wars, older even than recorded history. Somewhere deep in orbit, a dormant satellite, designation Arc 0, whispered its first message in 9 centuries. Code Sol activation recognized. Armada protocol in motion. No one understood what it meant, but Commander Rian did. He remembered his daughter's bedtime stories, the ones about ships that slept beneath the dust of the moon, powered by the hearts of dying stars. He had never believed them, until the ground beneath his feet trembled, and the air itself sang. The world changed that night. Over the Pacific, the clouds parted and beams of white light rose from the ocean, piercing the heavens like spears. From the deserts of Mars came echoes, metallic roars, engines awakening from slumber. The moon's surface cracked open, releasing silhouettes of colossal vessels, black and gold carved with the ancient sigil of humanity, a hand reaching toward a sun. The news feeds went dark. The stars brightened across every human colony, whispers spread. They killed one human child. And Earth remembered who she was. Commander Rian stood before the rising lights, tears tracing the grime on his face. Around him, soldiers fell to their knees, not in fear, but reverence. By the stars, someone whispered, they're real. Rian lifted his gaze to the heavens, his voice trembling with a father's grief and a soldier's fury. Alara, he said softly, they woke the wrong ghosts. As the first of the Ancestral Star Armada broke through the clouds, its engines igniting the night sky with golden fire, humanity felt the pulse of something eternal, rage born of love, power born of loss. The sky went silent, but in that silence, the galaxy began to tremble. The stars had not seen such light in 1,000 years. From the moon's shadow rose titans of metal and memory, vessels so vast that their silhouettes eclipsed constellations. They moved not like ships but like waking giants, their hulls shimmering with runes of gold and blue. They carried names etched in a language older than the Earth's current nations. Sol Invictus, Dawnspire, Aegis of Terra. The Ancestral Star Armada had returned. No one alive knew how. No one alive remembered why they had slept. But every human heart watching the sky that night knew one thing. Something sacred had answered. Commander Ryan Saul stood at the heart of Earth Command, his uniform still stained with ash from New Geneva. The War Council room was silent, the air heavy with disbelief. Dozens of world leaders and admirals watched live feeds from orbit, those impossible ships aligning above the planet like guardian angels forged in iron. A transmission came through. Not from the Vael Dominion, but from the void itself. "This is Admiral Cale Astreus of the Sol Armada. Earth, you have awakened us. Who has called the ancient code?" The voice was calm, resonant, impossibly human, and yet it carried the weight of centuries. Rian stepped forward, heart pounding. "I did," he said. "Commander Ryan Sol, Terran Defense." "A descendant of the line of Sol," the voice replied almost softly. "Then the blood of the founders still walks the earth. Tell us, Commander, why do you call upon the ghosts?" Ryan's throat tightened. The image of his daughter, her laughter, her tiny hand in his, flashed before his eyes. "They killed a child," he said quietly. "They thought it was enough to silence us." Silence filled the channel. Then the Admiral's voice returned, quieter, edged with something ancient and solemn. "Then they will learn that humanity's silence is never surrender." Across the command center, men and women felt their hearts ignite. Generations had grown believing humanity was small, a species tolerated by the great empires of the stars. But as the Armada aligned into formation, it was clear that small was never the truth. Humanity had simply forgotten. The Vael Dominion, watching from their silver fleets, hesitated. Their admirals had dismissed Earth as primitive, irrelevant. Now their scanners screamed warnings, energy readings far beyond known scale. Weapons locked in ancient patterns they could not decipher. The oldest of them whispered a word in fear: the Terrans. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Sol Invictus, Admiral Cale Astreus stood before a crystalline interface glowing with pulse light. His officers, humans of another age preserved by machines of light, watched the living world below with awe. "After all these centuries," Cale murmured, "they still endure." One of his lieutenants, a woman named Lyra Hale, smiled faintly. "Endurance was always their gift, sir. Even when the stars turned cold," Cale nodded. "And now that gift must become a blade once more." He turned toward the planetary feed. "Commander Saul," he said, his voice steady, "you will guide us. You are the living link. Tell your people, Earth stands not alone." The word spread across every human network. The effect was immediate. On Mars, miners laid down their tools and raised banners bearing the old symbol of the rising sun. On Europa, engineers wept as they saw the Armada hovering over their mother world. On the orbital stations above Venus, thousands of workers whispered a single phrase that carried through the comms like a song: "For Earth, for Elara." The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Empires paused their trade routes. Pirate clans powered down their engines. Even the Vael fleets, masters of half the sector, waited, uncertain, unsettled. In the depths of space, an old beacon flickered alive. It was not Vael nor human, but something older. A watcher probe, ancient beyond memory, sent its report into the dark. The humans have awakened their Armageddon choir. And far beyond known space, unseen eyes turned toward Earth once more. Back on the planet's surface, Ryan stood alone in the observation deck of the orbital elevator. The Armada hung above the blue curve of the world like a halo of fire. He whispered to himself, "If this is what it takes to protect one child, may the stars forgive what comes next." The lights of the ships pulsed in reply, as if they understood. In that moment, Earth was no longer silent. It was a heartbeat waiting to roar. The Vael Dominion did not believe in warnings. They believed in order, hierarchy, and control. To them, humanity was a minor flame, useful for trade, harmless to their empire's vast, glittering reach. Yet that night, as their war councils gathered under cold starlight, a tremor of unease swept through their fleets. The Terran transmission replayed again and again across the Vael command chambers. A voice from the past had answered humanity's cry, and an ancient fleet now guarded Earth like a living storm. The Vael High Consul, a tall, silver-skinned being, named Sarex Null, watched the footage of the newly awakened Armada. Each vessel burned brighter than their own capital dreadnoughts. He narrowed his pale eyes. "A myth given form," he said quietly, "and a myth must be broken before it breeds belief." His generals nodded, their faces expressionless. They spoke in calm, practiced tones, tacticians of fear. Shall we erase the Terran system, Consul? A full strike? Sarex considered. No. To strike blindly is to invite the shadows of history. We must first warn them. Let them tremble. Let them choose their despair. And so, the ultimatum was sent. A vast projection shimmered across Earth's orbit, an image of Sarex himself, his eyes like mercury, his voice echoing through every Terran screen, every colony channel, every city square. Humans of Earth, you have awakened something that does not belong to you. The Vael Dominion commands you, power down your weapons, deactivate these relics, and surrender your system's control within 24 standard hours. He paused, letting the silence sting. Defiance will bring extinction. On Earth, millions watched. Some trembled, some clenched their fists. And somewhere in the deep vaults of the Sol Invictus, the human officers of the ancient fleet laughed, a deep, bitter laugh that had not echoed in centuries. Commander Rian Sol stood on the bridge of the Aegis of Terra, now restored under his direction. The massive ship's hull was scarred by time but alive with power. Around him, living crew and awakened AI officers worked side by side, their holographic forms flickering with starlight. The ultimatum repeated once more. Ryan's hands tightened around the railing. He turned toward the communication console. Transmit to the Dominion, he said. Open frequency. The comms officer nodded. Ready, sir. Ryan took a breath. His voice was steady, but his heart ached with the echo of his daughter's laughter. This is Commander Rian Sol of Earth Defense Command. To the Vael Dominion, we do not surrender. We mourn one child, one soul, and for her, you have awakened every star our ancestors ever forged. He leaned forward, eyes hard as iron. You will find no fear here. Only consequence. The message spread across the system like wildfire. Within minutes it reached the Vael High Consul. Sarex Nal smiled coldly. So be it, he murmured. Let us test the myth. Moments later, hundreds of Vael warships descended into Terran orbit. Their engines blazed violet, their weapons charged with antimatter lances. The galaxy watched as the ancient race of conquerors turned their guns upon a single, stubborn world. And yet, the Armada did not move. The Sol Invictus, at the heart of the formation, remained still, a giant in meditation. Then, one by one, golden sigils ignited across their hulls. The ancient fleet hummed as though the stars themselves were breathing. Admiral, said Lyra Hale from her console aboard the Invictus. They're locking weapons. Admiral Cale Astreus looked to Ryan's image on the tactical feed. Commander Sol, he said, voice calm. Would your daughter have run from this? Ryan's lips trembled. No, he whispered. She would have stood and stared at the stars. Cale smiled faintly. Then let us honor her courage. The void blazed white. Thousands of Vael ships fired in unison, lines of death streaking across the dark. But before the blasts reached the planet, the Armada stirred. The first wave of golden shields bloomed like suns. Energy collided with light, soundless and absolute. The Vael beams scattered harmlessly, diffused by barriers that sang with power not seen in 1,000 ages. Then came the reply. The Aegis of Terra opened its forward lance. A beam of pure solar fire arced through space and struck a Vael dreadnought dead center. The massive ship vanished in a bloom of light. Silence followed, then shock, then chaos. The Dominion's admirals shouted orders. Retreat vectors, flank maneuvers. But it was too late. Humanity's myth had teeth. Ryan watched as fire painted the heavens. His grief no longer broke him. It carried him. For Alara, he whispered, and as the battle raged, Earth remembered what it meant to be feared. Space burned. The first great battle of Sol in 1,000 years had begun, above the blue curve of Earth, beneath the pale light of the moon. The stars flickered between fire and silence as the Vael Dominion's fleets clashed with the resurrected Ancestral Star Armada. To the people watching from the planet's surface, It looked like a storm of suns. Golden flares streaked through the void. Shadows of colossal ships carved through constellations. And amid the chaos, the voice of humanity, calm, measured, unshaken, echoed through every comm. All Terran vessels, this is Commander Rian Sol. Hold formation Delta 7. Protect the planetary shield lines. The Armada will cover our skies. Above him, Admiral Cale Estrellas commanded the core formation aboard the Sol Invictus. His ship was a cathedral of light and steel, its bridge glowing with the pulse of star cores. Around him stood officers, both human and digital, the living and the remembered united again. Status? Cale asked. Outer ring holding, sir, Lyra Hale replied. Vael forces pressing hard on the lunar flank. Their dreadnoughts are deploying drone swarms. Cale studied the tactical feed, 1,000 crimson dots surrounding Earth like a tightening net. Let them come closer, he murmured. Let them see what they've woken. At his command, the ancient fleet adjusted formation. Each ship rotated, locking into geometric alignment. Energy patterns older than recorded time flared across their hulls. The Vael commanders laughed, until the symbols began to move. The pattern wasn't random. It was a song, a frequency of light, a weapon of resonance. When the Armada fired, it did not launch torpedoes or beams. It unleashed harmony. A chord of energy rippled across space, silent yet devastating. Every Vael drone, every targeting array, every communications node shuddered as the pulse struck them. Circuits burned, sensors failed, ships spun out of formation. On the Invictus, Lyra's eyes widened. Sir, they can't track us, Cale nodded. That's the gift of the old architects. War without chaos. He turned to Ryan's image on the display. Commander Sol, your people are brave. Their defense grid is holding. Ryan stood inside the planetary command bunker, surrounded by officers relaying data from every corner of the system. We were built for storms, he said quietly. This one will not break us. But even as he spoke, the sky trembled. The Vael unleashed their final gambit, a massive siege weapon, a gravity implosion sphere designed to tear worlds apart. It formed at the center of their fleet, dark and swirling, feeding on light itself. The Dominion Admiral's voice cut through the static, cold and merciless. Let your myths die with your planet. The weapon activated. Oceans on Earth rippled as gravity distorted. The moon's orbit shifted. Across the Armada, alarms blared. Admiral, Lyra shouted. They've deployed a world killer. Cale's eyes hardened. Then we answer with the oldest vow. He placed his palm on the glowing console. Ancient. Codes ignited across the ship's bridge, patterns of gold weaving into the air. By the blood of Sol, by the oath of the first star, awaken the core. The Sol Invictus began to change. Its hull split open, revealing the luminous heart of a captured sun. The light grew until it hurt to look upon. Ryan watched from the command screens in disbelief. Admiral, you'll burn the ship. Cale's voice was steady. If one spark can protect a child's home, then let the stars bear witness. The Invictus surged forward, alone, straight toward the implosion sphere. The Vael fired everything, torpedoes, beams, plasma storms, but the ancient shields held. Inside the ship, the crew sang. It was not a song of sorrow, but of promise, an old Terran hymn carried across the void. We are the children of Sol. We do not yield. We burn and we rise. The Invictus struck the heart of the weapon. For an instant, the universe turned white. Silence followed. Then slowly, light returned, gentle and golden. The Vael weapon was gone. Their flagship had fractured. The Armada still stood. On Earth, people poured into the streets, gazing upward. The sky shimmered with auroras born of victory. But in the command room, Ryan's voice cracked. The Invictus. Is it gone? Lyra's faint signal came through the static. Still here, Commander. Damaged. But the Admiral, he's alive. Ryan exhaled, eyes wet with quiet relief. The Vael fleets broke formation, retreating toward the outer rim. Humanity had held, yet Rian knew the war was not over. The Dominion would return with greater fury, and the Armada, ancient, powerful, but limited, would not last forever. Still, for that night, Earth was safe. And every child looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you." As the Invictus drifted among the remains of battle, its captain whispered to the dark, "Ilara, we kept your sky." The smoke of battle lingered long after the Vael fleets fled. Above Earth, orbiting stations twinkled like embers against the void. Debris floated in slow arcs, the silent testament of war. Humanity had survived, but the cost was written in every trembling hand, every weary gaze, every quiet breath. Commander Ryan Saul walked through the ruined plaza of New Geneva. Once lively fountains now lay in rubble, and buildings scarred by distant energy strikes bore witness to the cruelty of a galaxy that had underestimated them. Yet even in devastation, humanity endured. Children who had hidden in shelters now emerged, blinking at the pale sunlight, grasping small tokens of hope. Among them, a single amber-eyed girl should have stood, but she was gone. Ilara's absence hung over every heart, a reminder of fragility and love intertwined. Rian knelt on the scorched ground, placing his hand over a small, unmarked spot where she had once played. His fingers traced the ash like a map of memory. "I'm sorry, my child," he whispered, voice breaking. "I will carry this, and I will fight." From the skies above, the Ancestral Star Armada drifted in formation, engines dimmed but humming like a heartbeat. Ships that had not moved in 1,000 years now floated quietly, their silhouettes regal against the blue of Earth. Admiral Kael Astreus's voice resonated through the orbital channels. "Commander Saul," he said, calm yet heavy with emotion, "you have given humanity a second chance. But we must awaken more than ships. We must awaken the spirit." Ryan's jaw tightened. "The Vael will return. They will not forget a single failure. What we have done tonight, it is not enough." "No," Kael replied. "It is the first step. But the heart of humanity has always been greater than fleets or weapons. It is the courage to rise again after loss. That is what terrifies them. That is what makes us unyielding." Lyra Hale, monitoring energy readings, added, "Our damage assessments show the fleet has reserves buried in the moons and asteroids. Power enough for decades if reactivated. But they require guidance, understanding, and living hearts to command them." Rian looked upward. The Armada hung in space like silent sentinels. So humanity must learn fast. Across the solar system, colonies began to stir. Communication networks buzzed with reports. Survivors of battle, scouts returning, engineers rediscovering lost technology. On Mars, miners discovered vaults long buried beneath the regolith, containing ancient schematics and weapons of power. On Europa, scientists unearthed dormant reactors pulsing with raw stellar energy. And on Earth, a single thought unified every mind: the Vael would come again. But humanity, now awake, would be waiting. Night fell, but the stars were different. Golden trails from the Armada cast ribbons of light across the heavens, painting the sky with reminders that humanity had allies older than memory itself. People whispered in every city, every village, every orbital station, "They cannot break us. We endure. We rise." Rian stood at the highest tower of the capital, looking at the horizon. A soft wind stirred the ash at his feet. He could almost hear Ilara's laughter carried in it. For the first time since her death, he allowed himself a small smile. "Yes," he said softly. "We endure. We rise." Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the Earth's crust. Scientists scrambled to confirm readings. Something massive was awakening deep within the planet. Not machinery, not human-made. Something older, dormant, and aware. Ryan's communicator buzzed. Lyra's voice came, urgent yet calm. "Commander, the fleet's deep reserves are responding. They're recognizing the planetary signal. Something beneath the crust is feeding them." "Then it begins," Ryan whispered. His hands clenched into fists. "The awakening has only just started." Across the horizon, the first auroras of golden light shimmered over the planet. They were not natural. These were echoes of power, resonating with the Armada above, with humanity below. Every pulse seemed to carry a promise: revenge, justice, protection, and survival. Even as Earth healed, humans worked. Repairs, rebuilding, training, research, the very essence of resilience. Every mind and hand devoted itself to learning the secrets left by ancestors, of machines older than stars, of strategies buried in myth. And somewhere deep within the Ancestral Star Armada, ships that had waited centuries now stirred, sensing the pulse of humanity below. They were alive. They were listening and they were ready. Ryan exhaled slowly, staring at the heavens. Ilara, he whispered to the wind, to the stars, to the memory that guided him. The galaxy will never hurt your kind again. We will make sure of it. The golden lights above pulsed once, twice, a heartbeat across space and time. A signal not just to humanity, but to the galaxy. Earth has awakened, and it remembers. Silence fell again, but it was no longer fearful. It was calm. It was anticipation. And in that quiet, humanity found its first taste of triumph. The war had only begun. But for the first time in 1,000 years, humanity knew it could win. The galaxy waited. Humanity had risen once from ashes, but the Vael Dominion had not forgotten. Across the cold expanse of space, their fleets gathered in quiet fury. Every vessel, every admiral, every weapon of war pulsed with a single purpose: to punish Earth, to erase the audacity of a species that dared awaken the Ancestral Star Armada. Commander Ryan Sol paced aboard the Aegis of Terra, now fully restored and bristling with energy. The memory of his daughter, Ilara, fueled his every thought. Her loss was no longer grief alone, it was resolve. Humanity's survival depended on it. Commander, called Lieutenant Miracade, they're moving faster than expected. Entire squadrons are jumping in from the outer rim. Rian nodded. Then we meet them in the darkness. Prepare all planetary defenses. Alert the colonies. The Vael will learn that we do not cower. Across the Armada, ships rumbled to life. Each hull, each engine resonated with ancient power. Beams of energy formed intricate lattices across the fleet, shields pulsing in golden waves. The Armada was no longer dormant, it was alive, listening to the hearts of humans below, responding to their fear, their courage, their will. In orbit above Earth, the Vael Vanguard appeared, sleek, silver warships that gleamed under starlight, armed with weapons capable of melting worlds. Their leader, Admiral Sarex Nal, projected his visage through the comms network, eyes glinting like cold metal. "Humans," he said, voice harsh and precise. "You have grown bold. Your myths are impressive, but myths do not win wars. Surrender your planet or watch it burn." Ryan's gaze did not waver. "We do not surrender," he said. "We endure. And if you bring fire, you will find it answered tenfold." The Vael fleet responded with a shockwave of antimatter lances, streaking through space toward the Ancestral Armada. Then, something unexpected happened. The Armada shifted as if aware of the attack before it occurred. Golden barriers erupted around each vessel. The beams collided with shields of impossible strength, dispersing in dazzling arcs of light that reflected across the void. Ships that should have been destroyed remained unharmed. Humanity's myth had teeth, and it had learned to fight. On the surface of Mars, Ryan's communications officer, Joran Vael, monitored the battle feeds. His voice was tight with awe. "Sir, the Vael weapons are being nullified. It's unprecedented." Ryan's hands gripped the console. "They've awakened too much," he muttered. "The Armada senses the children we protect. They sense the love we fight for." The Vael adapted quickly, deploying drone swarms and gravity mines to circumvent the shields. But each attempt was countered not by brute force but by ingenuity. Human pilots, trained alongside AI from the Armada, executed maneuvers centuries ahead of any Vael prediction. Mines were rerouted, drones captured, and enemy lines fractured under coordinated strikes. In the Sol Invictus, Admiral Kael Astreus watched the battle unfold. "They have forgotten the heart of humanity," he said softly. "It is not power alone that protects us. It is will, courage, and the love that drives them to rise even in the face of annihilation." Lyra Hale, monitoring the fleet systems, added, "We've synchronized with the planetary cores. Energy reserves from the moons and asteroids are feeding the ships. We can sustain this fight far longer than they anticipate." Ryan smiled grimly. "Good, let them come. Let them see what a child's memory can ignite." And then, in the midst of chaos, a small convoy of Vael ships broke formation, attempting a stealth strike on Earth's planetary defense array. Ryan's fighter squadron intercepted them, weaving through debris and energy pulses. Every strike was precise, every maneuver fueled by something deeper than strategy. It was the human instinct to survive, to protect, to avenge. Explosions blossomed in the void like silent fireworks, brilliant against the dark canvas of space. Yet every Vael loss was mirrored by human resilience. Ships that should have faltered rallied. Shields repaired themselves. Energy weapons recharged faster than expected. The Armada, it seemed, responded to the will of humanity itself. Above Earth, the auroras of golden light danced across the night, echoing every pulse of the Armada below. Across the colonies, humans whispered, "They cannot break us, we endure. We rise." And somewhere in the heart of the Sol Invictus, Admiral Kale murmured, "This is only the beginning. But the galaxy will remember Earth, and the child who awakened it all." Ryan's eyes hardened. "Then we fight, not just for survival, but for the right to exist. For every child, for every star." The Vael fleet pressed forward. But humanity had already learned its secret. Power born of love, courage, and remembrance could light the darkness of the galaxy, and that no force, no matter how ancient, could extinguish it. The battle had begun, and the stars themselves trembled with the pulse of a human heart. The galaxy held its breath. After weeks of relentless combat, the Vael Dominion had lost more ships than they could replace. Their tactics, once flawless, precise, merciless, had been undone by the ingenuity and courage of humanity. The Ancestral Star Armada, guided by both ancient AI and the will of living humans, moved with precision and purpose, a symphony of light and fire across the darkness. Commander Rian Sol stood on the bridge of the Aegis of Terra, gaze fixed on the main display. The Vael flagship, Oblivion's Crown, loomed in orbit above the Sol system, its black hull scarred by every engagement. One strike remained, one decisive move to end the Dominion's invasion once and for all. Admiral Kale Astreus addressed him through the channel. His voice carried the calm of centuries, yet beneath it was a hint of exhilaration. "Commander Sol, the fleet is ready. Humanity has shown the galaxy that it will not bow. One strike, coordinated with planetary cores and deep reserves, and this battle will end." Ryan nodded. Every human watching the feed knew what was at stake. Not just survival, but dignity. Not just victory, but a declaration. "We exist. We endure. Then let it begin," Rian whispered almost to himself. The Armada advanced. Ships formed a crescent, enclosing the Oblivion's Crown in a golden net of power. Beams of pure energy shimmered, resonating with the pulse of Earth itself, channeling decades of history, sacrifice, and love into a single moment. In the flagship's bridge, the Vael Admiral Serex Nal realized too late that myths were alive. The shields he had once dismissed were unyielding. The fleet surrounding him moved with precision beyond comprehension. Panic, unfamiliar to the Vael, swept through his crew. "Commander Nal," he growled, "withdraw or face annihilation." But Rian's reply was not one of negotiation. "This ends tonight," he said. "Not just for us, but for every child who will ever look to the stars in wonder. This ends for Alara." The first strike launched. From the Sol Invictus, a beam of concentrated stellar energy pierced the heart of the Vael flagship. It was not merely a weapon, it was a message, a testament of human ingenuity and ancestral power combined. Time seemed to stretch as the beam connected. The Vael vessel shuddered, systems failing in a cascade of light and fire. One by one, the surrounding fleet attempted to intervene, but the Armada's shields held. The human ships moved as one, coordinating flawlessly, striking with precision that was almost artistic in its execution. Ryan's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what humanity had achieved. Every loss, every tear, every sacrifice had led to this moment. The Oblivion's Crown fractured, its dark hull exploding in a bloom of brilliant gold and white fire that illuminated the void. The remaining Vael vessels, demoralized and leaderless, began a retreat across the outer rim of the system. Their empire had not been destroyed, but its invincibility had been shattered. On Earth, humans cheered. Across colonies, across orbital stations, across Mars, Europa, and Titan, voices rang out in unison. "We are humanity. We endure, we rise." Ryan stood, finally allowing himself a moment to breathe. Tears streaked his face, but this time they were not only grief, they were pride. The memory of Alara, his daughter, no longer hung solely as pain. It shone as a beacon guiding humanity's hand, lighting its heart. Admiral Kale's voice echoed through the bridge. "Commander Sol, humanity has proven its worth. The galaxy will remember this day. The stars themselves will speak of it." Ryan's voice was firm, resolute. "Let them remember it. Let every species know you cannot break the human spirit. You cannot erase its courage, and you cannot silence its love. Above them, the Ancestral Star Armada pulsed with golden light. Ships that had slept for centuries now hummed with life, their engines a heartbeat resonating across space. The Armada was no longer myth. It was living proof that humanity's will could bend the cosmos itself. Ryan looked upward, imagining Alara's laughter among the stars. "For every child," he whispered, "we will protect the sky. We will rise for you." The galaxy, silent for so long, now trembled with a new understanding. Humanity would endure, not by might alone, but by courage, love, and memory. And as the last of the Vael fleet vanished beyond the horizon, Ryan knew that the dawn of retribution had not only ended a war, it had awakened the true spirit of Earth. The stars had listened. The Armada had risen. Humanity would never be forgotten again. The universe was alive with the pulse of human courage, and somewhere, across the endless expanse of stars, a single thought carried on the cosmic wind. They killed one human child, and the galaxy learned the cost of awakening a species that refuses to bow.